some people don't just hurt others. They enjoy it. Not because they lost control. Not because they were angry, but because watching someone slowly break gives them a strange sense of satisfaction. A quiet kind of power. And the disturbing part? These people rarely look dangerous. They look charming, confident, intelligent, sometimes even compassionate. They laugh with you, they compliment you, they might even support you at first. But beneath that surface, something colder is operating. Something that studies people the way a predator studies movement, waiting for the right moment to apply pressure. Welcome to DarkMind Academy, where we study the psychology most people are too uncomfortable to talk about. Because the truth is simple. Not everyone experiences empathy the same way. And today we're exploring a personality structure psychologists now describe as one of the most dangerous combinations in human social behavior. A personality cluster that doesn't just manipulate, it feeds on reaction. It studies emotional vulnerability, and sometimes it enjoys suffering. This personality cluster is called the Dark Tetrad, and understanding it could save you from the most psychologically damaging people you'll ever meet. The evolution of the dark personality. For many years, psychology focused on 3 traits associated with manipulation and emotional coldness. This model was called the Dark Triad. It included 3 personality traits often found in highly manipulative individuals: narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. Each of these traits describes a different type of psychological advantage in social environments. Narcissism provides confidence and self-focus. Machiavellianism provides strategic thinking and calculated manipulation. Psychopathy removes fear and emotional hesitation. Together, these 3 traits already create a powerful combination. But researchers noticed something else, a pattern that didn't fully fit inside the original model. Because some individuals weren't just manipulating people, they seemed to enjoy the suffering they created. They smiled during humiliation. They watched emotional breakdowns with curiosity rather than concern. They provoked reactions, then leaned back to observe them. And so psychologists added a 4th trait, sadism. With that addition, the model evolved into something darker, the Dark Tetrad. And that 4th trait changed the entire dynamic. Because once sadism enters the equation, manipulation stops being purely strategic. It becomes entertaining. Why sadism changes the entire system. Imagine 3 different motivations. A narcissist wants admiration. A Machiavellian wants control. A psychopath wants stimulation. But a sadistic personality wants something much simpler. They want to see how far they can push someone before that person breaks. Not always physically, often emotionally. And that difference creates a dangerous feedback loop. Because when someone gains psychological satisfaction from another person's distress, your reaction becomes a reward. Your frustration becomes a signal. Your pain becomes entertainment. Some neurological studies suggest that individuals with sadistic tendencies may show increased reward activity when observing suffering. In other words, their brain may respond to your distress the way most brains respond to success. And once that pattern exists, the manipulation becomes self-reinforcing. The more you react, the more rewarding the behavior becomes for them. The 4 traits in action. Let's look deeper at how each trait behaves in real life. Not in textbooks, but in everyday interactions. Narcissism, the need for admiration. The narcissistic personality is built around a fragile internal image of superiority. To maintain that image, they need constant external validation. Tension, praise, recognition. When people admire them, everything feels stable. But when admiration disappears, the narcissistic individual experiences something called narcissistic injury, a psychological threat to their identity. To repair that injury, they may manipulate, belittle, or undermine others, not always aggressively, sometimes quietly, sometimes through subtle comparisons, but always with the goal of restoring their sense of superiority. Machiavellianism, strategic manipulation. Where narcissists seek admiration, Machiavellians seek advantage. They treat social environments like strategy games. Information is currency. Trust is a tool. Relationships are assets. They observe carefully. They remember weaknesses. They plan conversations the way chess players plan moves. Unlike impulsive manipulators, Machiavellians are patient. They may wait months before using the right leverage. And because they appear calm and intelligent, many people underestimate their intentions. Psychopathy, emotional detachment. Psychopathy removes two powerful human restraints: fear and guilt. Without fear, risk feels smaller. Without guilt, moral hesitation disappears. This doesn't mean every psychopathic individual becomes violent. Many simply become extremely bold. They take risks others avoid. They speak without emotional restraint. They pursue rewards aggressively. But emotional consequences that would normally stop someone barely register. Sadism, pleasure from pain. And then comes the final trait, sadism. This trait introduces something different from the others. Enjoyment. Not enjoyment of success, enjoyment of suffering. A sadistic personality may provoke emotional reactions simply to observe them. They may humiliate someone in public. They may embarrass a partner in front of friends. They may create stressful situations and watch the discomfort unfold. The reaction itself becomes the reward. And when sadism merges with narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, you get a personality structure capable of manipulation, calculation, fearlessness, and enjoyment of emotional damage. That combination is what psychologists call the Dark Tetrad. The subtle tactics they use. Dark Tetrad personalities rarely begin with obvious cruelty. Instead, their behavior unfolds gradually. They might begin with charm, confidence, intense attention, then slowly introduce small psychological pressures. A joke that feels slightly humiliating. A comparison that lowers your confidence. A moment of emotional withdrawal designed to trigger anxiety. They watch your reaction carefully. If you react strongly, the behavior increases. If you tolerate it, the pattern becomes routine. Over time, they may escalate into behaviors such as public teasing that targets personal insecurities, ignoring communication to create emotional instability, flirting with others in front of a partner to provoke jealousy, assigning impossible tasks and observing the stress response, creating social conflict and quietly observing the fallout. To outsiders, it may look like normal conflict, but to the person experiencing it repeatedly, the pattern becomes unmistakable. Someone is studying their reactions. Why these personalities can be hard to leave. One reason Dark Tetrad personalities cause deep psychological damage is because the relationship pattern often becomes addictive. Not intentionally addictive, but neurologically intense. Moments of charm and attention may alternate with moments of cruelty or withdrawal. This pattern creates unpredictable emotional rewards. The brain begins searching for the next moment of approval, the next return of warmth, the next sign that the relationship is improving. This cycle can trap people in long-term emotional dynamics that feel impossible to escape, because every small positive moment creates hope, and hope keeps the cycle alive. Recognizing the pattern early. Most people detect something unusual long before they understand what it is. It may begin as a small intuition, a feeling that someone enjoys pushing boundaries, or a subtle sense that emotional reactions are being observed rather than comforted. Over time, the signals become clearer. Your distress doesn't concern them. It intrigues them. They provoke reactions but avoid accountability. And they often become less interested in you once you stop reacting emotionally. This last point is especially revealing, because if someone loses interest when the reaction disappears, the reaction was likely the goal, the only strategy that truly works. Many people believe they can outsmart manipulative individuals, that they can expose them, change them, or win the psychological game. But when someone derives pleasure from emotional reactions, winning the game means refusing to play. The most effective responses are surprisingly simple. Clear boundaries, reduced emotional reactions, limited personal information, and when necessary, complete disengagement, because without reaction, the psychological reward disappears, and without reward, the behavior often loses its purpose. One final reality. The Dark Tetrad doesn't describe every confident or ambitious person. Many people possess confidence, strategy, and emotional control without causing harm. But when sadism enters the equation, the entire system changes, because the suffering of others becomes part of the experience, which is why awareness matters. Not paranoia, not fear, just awareness. Once you recognize these patterns clearly, you stop confusing manipulation with charisma, you stop confusing cruelty with strength, and you stop offering emotional reactions to people who treat them as entertainment. Before we end, take a moment. If this video helped you understand behaviors you've witnessed in relationships, workplaces, or social circles, make sure you subscribe to DarkMind Academy, because here we break down the psychological patterns most people only recognize after the damage is done. And if you've ever encountered someone who seemed strangely energized by your frustration or emotional distress, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize the signs earlier. Because understanding dark psychology isn't about becoming manipulative. It's about seeing manipulation before it sees you. Stay aware, stay controlled, and most importantly, stay free.